Hello once again. Welcome back to a review of The Evolving Analyst. And today I have one of the authors from that book, John Wisner. He runs his own podcast and YouTube channel called BA Insights. The title of his story, of his article in the book, is called The Global Pulse of Business Analysis. It's in the Career Growth and Strategy section of the book. And John Wisner is actually a managing principal consultant. He's also, like I mentioned, host of BA Insights podcast. And what I like most about John Wisner's article, I think, is that it examines business analysis through this global lens. It's highlighting how the BA profession is evolving across regions, across cultures, and across economic contexts. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, you're very welcome. We got a few questions for you today, like we do all our guests. Let's start with this one. From your global experience with BA Insights, interviewing lots of people around the world, what do you think two aspects of business analysis stay universal across cultures?
I think for me, on the basis that as business analysts, we're at the center of relationships, we're connecting people, connecting ideas and solutions and requirements, as an example. I think really building that trust and that understanding would be number one for me, or one of two anyway. I'm going to talk about, because I think really where across these sort of cultures, really, wherever you are in the world, your business analysis succeeds or it fails, really on the ability to provide that clarity and that alignment between your stakeholders, really, really represent them. So techniques that amongst many that we tend to use in that sense is actively listening, but actually probably better more than that, actually taking an interest in what the stakeholders want from us, what they're actually doing, what their problems really are, and trying to get to the bottom of that, and really validating different perspectives as well. We definitely we want to make sure that we're taking the full picture into account rather than assuming that one person's perspective is equivalent to everybody. So I think that is probably one area, that trust and that understanding, that hopefully allows people to feel heard and feel that they're aligned and part of the solution, really. My second point I was thinking of on this, from a global perspective, and indeed local as well, is really having that discipline to really understand the problem or the opportunity before jumping into solution as well. And I think that ability for us as BAs to slow down in the right way, just enough to really get to the bottom of what's the real problem, the real opportunity that we're trying to solve. How can we really help the businesses and the organisation we're working with? And then later on, we'll definitely help them implement a solution, but we need to implement a solution that is fit for them, really. Some things I tend to think about in that respect is trying to separate symptoms from root causes, trying to understand the business processes that they follow, the data elements, the information that flows through their processes, and really use that to inform our understanding of what it is we need and what their problems are that we need to resolve.
I like that. The idea of just take your time to digest, to understand the issues that you're trying to solve and building that trust. Thanks. That's really, really good. Can you maybe give us an example, share an example where cultural context significantly altered how analysis needed to be approached or needed to be communicated?
Yeah, so this one, I guess for me, working in financial services, I guess to some extent, the cultural differences between different locations isn't always significant. It's sometimes a little bit harder to understand and recognise. But the particular example I'm going to recount and think about is when we was recently looking at introducing and working on a global BA and process centre of excellence for a client. We had to think about not just how to standardise business analysis and process practices, improve quality and consistency, but also think about how can we really take the best of what individuals were doing, and really allow them to be themselves without being robots, but also to almost take the best of what they were doing, and connect it. And I think taking that approach of really listening to what people were approaches they were taking, rather than just come in and say, look, we know better. This is how to do analysis. This is how to do process. By actually listening to how the teams are working at present in different locations, really listening to the successes they were having, and in a lot of cases as well, a lot of issues that a lot of areas they weren't having too much success. We can really then explore, well, what suited that organisation. What standards should we put in place? How can we improve the consistency for them? How can we bring together the community so that they can evolve and improve their maturity as the group get used to the new standards and want to improve the standards really.
Awesome. I like this idea of listening. That's really key to solving
Absolutely.
any problems. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
I think sometimes just to jump on that point, Mark. I mean, I think I've seen some examples of bad analysis. I'm grateful that it's not a load, but when you see them and it's like trying to tell your stakeholders what their requirements are, what their solutions are, just not listening at all to what problems there are, or I guess on a similar theme, I might have worked at one bank and experienced some problems. To assume that they're the same problem in another bank is somewhat short-sighted. And by opening our minds, talking to stakeholders and listening, not only is there better value and outcome, but actually it makes the role of the BA a little bit more interesting as well, a lot more interesting.
yeah, better value and outcome. It's interesting. Some people try and sell sandpaper when you need a hammer or something like that. You don't want, yeah, you don't want that to happen. So you were talking about standards, global standards as well. How can you sort of BAs balance those global standards, maybe even global frameworks with local realities, without losing effectiveness? Do you think there's a way to look at that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's almost like there's a bit of a journey in that respect. So I think any individual joining an organisation where there are BA standards in place, irrespective of the quality of those standards and the breadth of those standards, I think they probably have a responsibility to learn those standards and to try to adopt them and to test them in the context of that organisation. Um, but they also have probably a responsibility as well to assess honestly when those standards are not quite fit for purpose, and when the needs of their situation, their project, their location, and their stakeholders means that what's in place currently isn't quite good enough, or it could be better, or it doesn't really apply. I think so. This doesn't mean that people that are new to an organisation are the only people that do this. I think everyone can, and I think what you need to do as an individual is to just take responsibility to improve the standards of the organisations you work with, not to be just imposed upon by them and feel that they're a noose that you can't get out of. I think if you take that proactive approach of trying to develop yourself and the team and the way that the practices are, you will naturally give feedback and naturally point out where things can be improved. Maybe in some cases as well, we need to have a little bit of a thick skin, because not every idea that we're going to put forward will be accepted. Sometimes we have to bite the bullet and actually just follow the standards of the organisation, because others better than us have trod the path before and they know why the standards are in place. But definitely taking a bit of responsibility and not being afraid to put your hand up is a really good step. And maybe as well, just taking that broader view. I think when I think naturally about the business analysis standards or frameworks, I don't think they're particularly useful if you only think about business analysis in isolation. Because business analysis possibly hasn't delivered. It doesn't always deliver too much on its own. There's other disciplines, transformation, technology, development. There's a couple of examples. So they're probably good stakeholders in those few examples I spoke about. How can we speak to the technology team we're working with, the development team we're working with, test team as an example, to make sure that the standards are actually good for them, that actually we're giving them a product that they need and that's going to be beneficial, rather than something that ticks our box but it doesn't actually work for anyone else.
I like this idea that business analysis doesn't live in a silo. I like that. I like that idea because we're always interconnected with other groups that we have to work with, project managers, the Scrum department, maybe VPs and executives, right? A global team. as well as a local team. So I like that. I also really like how you emphasize that while those tools, those frameworks may certainly differ, I think at the core value of analysis really remains universal, right? Whether that's creating clarity, alignment, if it's an informed decision making of some sort. So thanks once again, John, for being on the show and for giving us your insight about the global pulse of business analysis.
Anytime, Marcus. As I said at the start, always a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Superb. Thanks, Emil.